Tens of thousands of years before modern bushcraft or survival manuals, before iron knives or flint strikers, there was another kind of outdoorsman, the Neanderthal. In frozen valleys and wind-cut caves, these early humans faced Ice Age winters that would kill most of us in a single night. Yet they thrived. Archaeologists now know they weren't the brutish, fire-staring caricatures we once thought. They were engineers of flame. The same fire-starting techniques they mastered over 50,000 years ago still form the foundation of what we call bushcraft today. The Neanderthal fire kit wasn't made of steel or tinder boxes. It was born from an understanding of chemistry, friction and patience that modern survivalists are only rediscovering. Today we're breaking down how it worked, why it endured, and how you can still use those same Ice Age methods to make fire in 2025. The Neanderthals' mastery of fire wasn't luck, it was engineering. For a long time, scientists assumed Neanderthals scavenged fire from lightning strikes or natural wildfires. That idea is outdated. Excavations across Europe, from France's Pech de Lazé cave to Italy's Riparo Bombrini, show that Neanderthals made and maintained fire intentionally, often in areas where no natural fire could have survived. They carried with them a portable fire kit of sorts, made from the tools and materials nature offered. The kit usually contained media group, close-up pyrite and flint stones, hand-holding flint and pyrite for fire-making, stock, distribute, equally a piece of pyrite, a chunk of flint, and tinder material like fungus or dried plant fibres. This was the world's first spark-based ignition system. When flint strikes pyrite, tiny metal particles heat instantly from friction and burst into sparks at over 800 degrees Celsius. When those sparks land on dry tinder, especially on a material like amadu, made from the inner layer of the tinder fungus, they smoulder slowly, ready to be coaxed into flame. That same principle powers every modern ferro rod and steel striker today. The brilliance of the Neanderthal fire kit lies in its simplicity. It required no fuel other than what could be carried in a pocket, and it worked in nearly any climate if you had the patience to master it. Modern bushcrafters still use the exact same setup: flint, pyrite or steel, and fungus tinder, because it remains one of the most reliable methods for cold weather survival. Neanderthals didn't have cotton balls soaked in petroleum jelly or magnesium shavings to help them start a fire. They relied on materials that nature provided, but processed them with remarkable skill. One of their most important discoveries was the use of Fomes fomentarius, commonly known as the tinder fungus. Found growing on birch and beech trees, this fungus has an inner layer, called the amadu, that catches and holds an ember better than almost any modern tinder. To prepare it, they would cut and dry the fungus, then pound the inner layer into soft, fibrous sheets. Some archaeological evidence even suggests they treated it with ash or urine to improve its smouldering ability, a kind of primitive chemical enhancement. When struck with sparks from pyrite and flint, the amadu would begin to glow like a coal. From there, a handful of dry grass, bark or moss could be added to nurture the ember into flame. For a modern bushcrafter, this method still works flawlessly. You can collect tinder fungus in forests where it's legal to harvest, slice off the inner layer, and prepare it exactly as our Ice Age ancestors did. Try pairing it with a ferrocerium rod or steel striker, and you'll find that this ancient tech outperforms most commercial fire starters in damp conditions. What's remarkable is that Neanderthals didn't rely on just one way to make fire. They adapted their methods to local resources. In wetter climates, they leaned on pyrite and fungus, which could still spark under moisture. In drier regions, such as parts of Spain or Central Asia, evidence suggests they also used friction-based fire starting, similar to the hand drill or bow drill methods later developed by Homo sapiens. The hand drill works on the same principle as all fire by friction, turning kinetic energy into heat. A dry spindle spun rapidly against a fireboard generates dust hot enough to form a coal. Archaeological sites show wear patterns consistent with these tools, meaning Neanderthals may have been using multiple systems, just like a modern survivalist who carries both a lighter and a flint striker. If you want to test this for yourself, start by learning both spark-based and friction-based fire making. Flint and pyrite teach precision and patience, while the bow drill teaches endurance and technique. Mastering both connects you directly to the same learning curve that defined the survival skills of early humanity. In many cases, making fire from scratch wasn't really practical every time a group stopped to rest. Instead, Neanderthals learned to carry fire between camps. Archaeologists have found traces of charred plant matter and hollowed-out bone containers lined with ash, evidence of portable embers. By enclosing a slow-burning piece of fungus or bark in a container with limited oxygen, they could actually preserve a live ember for hours or even days. So, this practice, known as ember carrying, is really one of the most efficient survival tricks ever developed. It meant that fire could be rekindled instantly without needing to make new sparks every single time. In modern bushcraft, you can actually replicate this by keeping a small ember inside a tin with holes or tucked within a bundle of dry plant fibres. It's a low-effort, high-reliability technique that ensures you always have warmth, the ability to cook, and protection no matter where you travel. This single innovation, honestly, transformed how early humans and Neanderthals lived. It allowed them mobility without ever losing the lifeline of heat and light. Even today, in wilderness survival courses, carrying an ember is still a critical skill, especially when fuel and dry tinder are scarce. From the pyrite flint method to tinder fungus, every aspect of the Neanderthal fire kit laid the foundation for all future fire-making tools. When iron eventually replaced pyrite, the principle stayed exactly the same. The flint and steel that explorers and soldiers carried for centuries are direct descendants of Neanderthal ingenuity. Even ferro rods, which were developed in the 20th century, operate on that same 50,000-year-old concept, throwing molten metal particles into prepared tinder. This continuity really matters. It reminds us that survival isn't all about technology, it's about understanding the materials around you. The Neanderthals knew their environment intimately, what sparked, what smouldered, and what stayed dry. That kind of awareness is something most modern people have lost, but it's honestly pretty easy to reclaim. Next time you're out in the woods, try identifying 3 natural tinders, test your striker against different rocks, and just see what catches. The process itself teaches patience and a real respect for the fundamentals of firecraft. The Neanderthal fire kit isn't just some archaeological curiosity. It's actually the living root of bushcraft itself. It shows how intelligence, patience and adaptability have always been humanity's greatest tools. Every spark struck by a ferro rod today echoes those same survival instincts that kept our ancestors alive through the ice ages. So, if you value the deep history behind the skills we still use outdoors, go ahead and subscribe to Echoes of Valour and share this with a fellow history enthusiast or bushcraft friend. Understanding the past doesn't just honour it, it keeps the flame alive.